So good afternoon. My name is Ondřej. I'm from the Czech Republic, as is SketchEngine. Most of you may not know what SketchEngine is. And some of you may not know what the first word in the title of the talk means, because I expect you know what linguistics is, but you may not really know what corpus linguistics is. So I'll devote the initial 3 minutes to explaining that. As a language user, especially as a language learner, language teacher, or translator, interpreter, you might sometimes come across this problem, which is, do people really say that? Or in other words, can I say that? But that's actually a bad question, because can I say that? I mean, you can say anything. The question is it normal to say that? And you need a way of checking whether what you are planning to say or write or use is the normal way of saying it. So that's one problem. Another problem, which probably is a problem that you don't have that much, but other people may have it, is you might need to know how language works. If you imagine you work for a software company that develops keyboards for mobile phones, and if you have a mobile phone, you have a keyboard in the mobile phone, and probably the keyboard in your mobile phone can predict what the next word you want to type is. But how does the keyboard do it? Well, the keyboard knows, for each word in the language, the keyboard knows what the probability of the next word is. But how do you find out that? Also, the same problem, how do you find out? The same question as with the first problem. One solution to this problem could be this. You just walk around and ask somebody, is it normal to say that in your language? Is it normal? Or what would you say the most probable next word is? But if you ask just one person, that doesn't work, because that will be just subjective judgment. So maybe you need to ask another person, you may need to ask another person, another person, another person, and actually to get a really objective information, you need to ask lots of people, which is completely unrealistic. And this is where something called a corpus comes in. Corpus is just a posh name for lots of text. So if you have one sentence, actually you have a corpus. If you have 10 sentences, you have a corpus, but those 10 sentences will not contain much information about how language works. It's too short, so actually corpus typically is a very, very large collection of texts produced by speakers or users of that language, and it's a collection of texts in electronic form, so that it allows all kinds of automated searching and analysis. And you may not have a corpus to ask, but this is where SketchEngine comes in, because SketchEngine is a software to work with corpora, and it comes with various text corpora. It's developed by a company called Lexical Computing. And SketchEngine contains about 400 or over 400 different text corpora in over 90 languages. And those languages are written in over 20 different writing systems. So it includes Bengali, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Russian, all of those. And I said that the corpus has to be very large. So for most languages, each corpus has a size over 1 billion words. So all the texts in that language are 1 billion words long. For large languages with lots of speakers, we have corpora over 10 billion words long. And for English, which is our largest corpus, we actually have almost 40, so 40, not 1-4, but 40 billion words of text. And when we have the text, we can search the text. So SketchEngine contains specialized linguistic tools for searching or analyzing the texts, to extract linguistic information. So that makes it very different from Google, because Google also searches lots of text on the internet. But the purpose of Google search is to retrieve often commercially oriented information, something you can buy, so you can visit, but it's not so much linguistics or information about language. Most of our corpora have these two properties, are post-tagged and lemmatized, which may not say anything to you, but POS stands for part of speech. So actually for each word in the corpus, we have a special label telling the system whether it's a noun, verb, adjective, adverb, preposition, whichever part of speech in that language is. And also lemmatized means that for each word, we assigned an additional label which tells the system which the base form of the word is. So, for example, in English, for the word went, we would say that the base form of went is go. And then, when you need to find all kinds of examples of the word go, you just type go, and it will find go, going, gone, went, goes. It's easy to name all in English, but you can imagine that lemmatization is critical for many, many other languages. Just think of Spanish, French, Italian, how many different word forms each verb has. So to find all the different word forms, you would have to type all of them, and it's, I don't know, is it 50, 60, 70? I don't know, many, many different word forms. So actually being able to type just the infinitive and still get all the different word forms is really useful. And our users are not only universities which use it for linguistics, but also translators and interpreters, but also language teachers and language learners, dictionary publishers, companies like Oxford University Press and Cambridge University Press. Any dictionary they publish, irrespective of the language, or probably almost any, they develop it to a certain extent with the help of SketchEngine. So they will come to us and they will say, look, we need a new dictionary of Tagalog. And the only, I don't know anything about Tagalog, but I can imagine that there are not very many dictionaries of Tagalog probably, and maybe the latest dictionary is relatively old. So what we do, we collect lots of Tagalog texts, and we will generate a list of the most frequent words in that language, and they will draw a line under the 20,000th most frequent word, and this will be the starting point of their dictionary, and that's where the dictionary work starts. And also National Language Institute, Institute of the Dutch language, the Royal Spanish Academy, Institute of the Bulgarian language, Slovak language, Czech language, Estonian language, I'm not sure, we probably forgot some, Institute of the Languages of Finland, and other language institutes are used of the software. But forgot about that. Languages that we currently support so you can look. You'll find that information on the web, so you can Google it at any time. It says plus your language. So if there is a language which you would like to use in SketchEngine and it's not supported yet, you can actually still upload texts in that language into SketchEngine, and lots of the functionality, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, will still be available for your language, but not 100% of it. Typically, part of speech tagging, we will not be able to say what's noun, what's verbs in your language if it's not supported. And also this lemmatization, this assigning base forms will not be available, and that might limit certain functions. But you are still allowed to upload any language, like such as somebody asked me, Klingon. Yes, you can upload text in Klingon if you have them. And the first tool inside SketchEngine, which is very useful to learners of languages and teachers, is called the word sketch. This is why SketchEngine is called SketchEngine, because SketchEngine is the only software, to our knowledge, that has that functionality. That's why it's engine for making sketches. And think of a sketch, like think of an artist just drawing a sketch of something they see very quickly, just to get maybe a very rough idea of what something looks like, but get the idea very quickly. So this is what word sketch does, and I'll show you how that works. I will show you on screenshots, but when I finish talking, I will show you live in the system. So now just a screenshot of a word sketch. So actually what I did was I typed the word cat, and you can see cat at the top, and you can see that the system found 1,200,000 examples of the word cat, or 1,200,000 sentences which contain the word cat, because I somehow assume they don't say cat more than once in a sentence generally. And then the system looks at all the sentences and processes the context to the left and context to the right of the word, and uses some algorithms and statistics to identify the most typical combinations of the word cat in English. And it tells me that feral cats is the most typical combination of the word cat in English, not necessarily the most frequent combination. By default, these lists are sorted by typicality, and you can read on our website what exactly we mean by typicality. This would be for another half-an-hour talk, so I will not go into detail on that. But the reason why we don't show the most frequent ones at the top is that usually what is frequent is not interesting or useful, because the most frequent combination of the word cat probably is something like small cat, or big cat, or black cat, or white cat. But actually you don't have to be a genius to work that out yourself. You know, so even if you didn't know that if a cat is black and you want to say that in English, you would still probably say black cat. You don't need some software to tell you that. So that's why it's sorted by typicality, and basically typicality means that feral and cats are very often found together, and they are rarely found, or feral is rarely found in combination with other words, or there might be just very few words which it combines with. So, for example, you don't say feral language, you don't say feral lighting, you don't say feral student. You might say that, but it's highly infrequent. So these words like to be together quite a lot, and that's why we consider them typical. And the next column tells you cat something, yeah? Cat litter, cat scan, cat lovers, cat dog, and cat Stevens. I actually use that because apparently that column contains two clear mistakes, because apparently cat scan is not a scan of the animal, it's some kind of, don't ask me what that is, but some technology. And cat Stevens, it's not a type of Stevens that's cat or something like that. But all of this is generated completely automatically without any human intervention or without any human correction or editing, which means that computers are pretty stupid. All computers can do is add 1 and 1, and I think that's about everything they can do. And they don't understand the meaning of words. So the statistics will sometimes return something which is incorrect. But actually that does not make the screen less useful. It's still very useful to see that. Another advantage of automatic processing is that we are able to generate a word sketch for any word in the language, provided it's present in the data, in the corpus, and it's found frequently enough. Obviously, you can't generate any word sketch for a word which is only found 3 times, because that does not give you enough information which words are typically used. You know which words are used in those 3 cases, but you can't judge whether it's typical or accidental. So the automatic processing makes it possible to generate this for any word in the language. That's why our corpora are so large, because having 40 billion words of English means that even a relatively rare word which is not used very frequently, will be still found several hundred times, and such information can be generated. This is different from dictionaries. Yeah? In dictionaries, you might also get similar information, but that information will be processed by humans, so it might be easier to understand. It might not have it might not have mistakes in that. We might not have cat Stevens and cat scan in it. But unfortunately, that human work costs money, and nobody has unlimited budget. So dictionaries will never contain all words in the language. Okay, that's about the word sketch. If you actually want to see the actual sentences from which the collocations were gathered, you can click on the 3 dots and jump to the actual sentences. I will show you live later. You can of course generate the same thing in other languages. Yeah, Spanish the same thing, but for some reason it's Gato Montes. It's not feral cat. So in Spanish they speak about cats differently, and apparently they don't speak about cat Stevens very often. That's why it doesn't come up. But it would have. I wonder whether machine translation translates cat Stevens as Gato Stevens into Spanish. But if that happened, okay. Yeah, Japanese the same thing. People who speak Japanese, does it look correct? At least some of it. Still cat, but still some words that would be. I can see black cat, and that's about it. So that looks correct. That looks correct. Okay. So this is available. Actually, I should say that out of the 90 languages we support, this quality of word sketches is available in about 35 of them. The remaining languages still generate some word sketches, but they are slightly simplified because we don't have part of speech tagging and lemmatization, but they are still useful. Again, I can demonstrate later. So that's the word sketch. The next functionality that we have is the Thesaurus. You probably know what a Thesaurus is, but this Thesaurus is an automatic. Does it work all the time, or does it work, not work? The former or the latter? The latter. So can I please try the other microphone which disappeared? I don't know, but then next second is not. Hello, hello. Yeah. Okay, we'll try. So the next functionality is the Thesaurus, which is an automatically generated thesaurus. So again, no manual intervention. The software will automatically decide, but again, decide, that's not how computers work. It will simply compute, perform some computations, and will establish which words are similar in meaning. So for the word, if you type wonderful, that's clear, those are synonyms. If you type something like mango, apparently there are probably no synonyms of mango, maybe apart from languages from countries where mangoes are grown, because then those people might have some synonyms of mangoes, but here in Slovakia, no one has a synonym. So it will actually generate not really synonyms of mangoes, but words belonging to the same category, to the same topic, to the same semantic field. Now you may wonder how do actually computers do it? I mean, how can they compute whether two words are similar in meaning? This is based on the theory of distributional semantics, which is a term which you can forget, don't worry, which actually says that if two words are found in similar contexts, they are probably similar in meaning. So actually what happens is, to generate the thesaurus, when you type mango, we will generate a word sketch for mango and all the combinations, and we will also generate a word sketch for every other noun in the system. So not just fruit, we will generate for word sketch for mango, for opinion, for bubblegum, for mother-in-law, for transcendentality, or just for any noun in the corpus. And we will compare what percentage of those collocations is shared between the two words. And if the percentage is very high, the words are similar in meaning. If the percentage is very low, they are not so similar in meaning. So actually, when you work with the thesaurus, you may notice that from time to time there's a word which does not really fit the list at all. And this is not because it's the same in meaning or similar in meaning, it's because for some strange reason it has very similar collocations, but not necessarily the same meaning. But again, this does not make the thesaurus less useful. The automatically generated thesaurus can be generated for any word in the corpus. Again, a big difference from print thesauri, where manual work is involved, and when you reach the end of your budget, that's where the thesaurus ends. I forgot what I wanted to say next, so I'll just probably say something different, and doesn't matter. But I think that's about everything about the thesaurus. Maybe the next thing that SketchEngine helps you to do is generating all kinds of frequency lists. This is not the result screen, this is the input form when you set your criteria. But you can see that you can generate a list of all words, all lemmas, words meaning word forms, so you get a separate frequency for go and separate frequency for goes. When you select lemma, you will just see go, and goes, going, gone, went will be counted together as go. Yeah? Nouns, adjectives, adverbs, you can even set criteria such as words starting with a particular letter or sequence of letters, containing, and so on. Just maybe one interesting use, my friend is a speech therapist, and she asked me, can you help me with a problem I have? I have lots of adult clients, and I've got lots of books with pronunciation exercises, But usually it's children going to a speech therapist to learn to pronounce correctly. So the words in those exercises are words for children, yeah? Princess and magic wand and God knows what and tooth fairy. I mean, could I generate some normal words to work with my adults? So actually she used that. She just typed which sequence of letters she would like to have in the word and could generate lists of words for that purpose, which is quite unusual use, but that worked. So you can generate a list of the most frequent nouns, verbs, adjectives in a particular language, and so on. Another functionality is mainly aimed at people working in the translation or interpreting field. You can upload your own text and have SketchEngine automatically identify terminology in the text. Please don't think that translators are so lazy that if they get one page of text, they upload it to SketchEngine to get the terminology. No, they just read it and underline the terminology. That's the fastest thing. But what happens is they might have technical documentation, which is thousands of pages, and they might need to identify terminology in the documentation so that they can build some terminology glossary for the company where the documentation comes from. And they can't really read thousands and thousands of pages. So they upload all of that into SketchEngine. Actually, this is, I uploaded texts about digital photography and digital cameras, pressed a button and SketchEngine tells me this is the terminology related to the topic. So that's another thing to do. And you can also use SketchEngine to find example sentences, which in Corpus linguistic speech is called a concordance. Concordance means examples of words or phrases with some context to the left and some context to the right. Actually, what did I do? Oh, I didn't really search manually for feed cat, but I used the word sketch for cat, and in the column with verbs, it told me that a typical verb to combine with cat is to feed cat, and I wanted to see the actual examples of that collocation, so that's how I got that. But you can, of course, type manually to feed cat, and it will find something like that. This can be sorted alphabetically by various criteria, can be filtered, you can apply various tools which are at the top of the screens, but I will actually not explain what are all the things you can do. We run a SketchEngine course, how to work with SketchEngine. It lasts 13 hours of teaching, yeah? So if you've got like 13 hours, I can teach you, but not now. So this is concordance, and there are a few more tools which I don't think are particularly important to you. For example, we've got an Engram tool which generates the most frequent sequences of words, and this is something which software company use for the mobile keyboards, because the mobile keyboards actually contain a database of the most frequent sequences of 2 or 3 words, and then based on the last word or last 2 words which you typed, they can predict what the next word will be, because they know what the most frequent triple or trigram, or the most frequent couple of words, bigram, in that language is. But you can explore it for yourselves later. A very interesting feature is that you can actually, first you can of course work with the corpora we have, which is highly recommended, because they are very, very large. They cover lots of topics text type, subjects, and so on. But you can also upload your own text. So for example, I mean, not necessarily your own which you wrote, but text which you got somewhere, downloaded from somewhere. You can download them and you can generate like a list of the most frequent nouns in that text, verbs in that text, and so on and so on. So you can build your own corpora. There are two corpus building options. Either you don't have anything to build a corpus from, or you have something to build a corpus from. If you don't have anything to build a corpus from, SketchEngine contains a corpus building tool which will find relevant text on the internet for you. So you will just define the topic by using a few, like 3 or 4 words which are typical for that subject area. So for example, if somebody told me that tomorrow I have to do some interpreting at a dentist convention, and all I know is tooth, cavity, and gum, and maybe parodontosis. Okay, 4 words I know. So I can type these 4 words into SketchEngine, and SketchEngine will search the web for those words, and the pages that are most relevant will be downloaded, converted into a corpus. I click a button, generate terminology, and suddenly I've got lots of words which I've never seen, but at least I know that this is the terminology I will need tomorrow. So best to find out what it means, how it's used, and so on. So there's a corpus building tool from the web. So that's for cases where you don't have anything, and also when you need something very specialized. Because our corpora supplied with SketchEngine are mainly for very general use. But of course you will find lots of teeth, gums, and parodontosis in our corpora as well. Our corpora can be very infected. Yeah, parodontosis and God knows what. Foot and mouth disease, everything is in there. So that's from nothing, and of course from something means you've got some files to upload. It can be text files, Microsoft Word documents, PDFs. You just upload it in normal way and it gets processed. I will not describe the process in detail. Please, if you want to find out, go to our YouTube channel, search for SketchEngine. As far as I know, there's only one thing on YouTube called SketchEngine. And there's not many videos, like 10 or 15 videos, and 2 of them are about corpus building. Each video is something like, 5 minutes? That one is really it's just 3 minutes from that. Okay. We try to keep them short. Okay, so corpus building. And if you want to learn to use SketchEngine, just go to the website and go to the user guide or quick start guide. You go to the YouTube channel. You can take part in our SketchEngine Bootcamp, which is a face-to-face training in the Czech Republic, in Brno, 120 kilometers from here, 120 kilometers away from Vienna, 200 kilometers from Prague. I didn't actually include any links, but just Google it, because luckily SketchEngine is easy to Google. So this is how you can learn to use SketchEngine. When you work with the videos, please don't forget that YouTube has this. All our videos are manually subtitled in English, but that actually makes it possible to use the auto-translate on YouTube, and that works surprisingly well. I actually tested it with native speakers of Greek, Estonian, Turkish, Hungarian, so even very unrelated languages, and they told me, yes, the automatic translation, sometimes there's a mistake, but it's fully usable, fully understandable. So if you have people who find it difficult to follow the video in English, use that to do it. And if you want to use SketchEngine, SketchEngine is a commercial software. We are a privately held company. We are not related to university or any other organization which gets some funding. So we have to really earn our salaries. That's why I've been here for 3 days and will be for 1 more to get my salary in full. And you can sign up for a free 30-day trial account. Just go to the website, anybody can do it, so I won't give you any special code which will allow you to do that. Universities or academic institutions in the EU have free access. Actually, the access is not free, it's funded by an EU project, so we still get money for it, but the universities don't have to pay anything. The universities have to request access. So far, about 300 European universities have requested the access. So all of their students, teachers, and researchers can log into SketchEngine and use it. Again, Google something like free access for free SketchEngine for universities. The first result you get is a list of universities which already have access. Check the list. If your university is not on the list, there's a button saying request access. We just need 1 single form signed by an employee of the university, and we will set your free access up. So doesn't mean that every single user has to request it. It just the institution requests it once. If you are not lucky to be from the EU or affiliated with a university, after the free trial, it's paid access, which is 57.99 euros per year, plus the local VAT in the EU. Outside of the EU, there's no VAT applied to it. And of course, we offer multi-user account or accounts, like university-wide accounts, even outside the EU, but those are paid accounts. So you can go to our website, sketchengine.eu, contact us, email us what you would like to have, and we'll tell you what to do next. So, what did I want to say? Good news is that for a selection of languages, which is rather random, we have a simplified free interface which does not require any login details or any payments, which is called Scale. Again, I'm not giving you the URL because you just Google Scale, and apparently there's only one thing in the world called Scale, which is this. So it comes up first, which Scale stands for Sketch Engine for Language Learning. So this gives you some of the functionality, such as the collocation functionality, example sentences, and the Thesaurus in a simplified way. If you're wondering why on earth did we decide exactly on these languages and your language, despite being very important, is not there, this is because we developed this on request when somebody pays for it. And Estonian government is very much into corpora. Their institute works with SketchEngine. All dictionaries are created with the help of corpora, and they wanted to have something for learning Estonian. So that's why we got Scale. So we are still waiting for somebody from France and Spain and other important countries to request Scale, and we will create it. Maybe just one interesting fact about it. This interface only works with 1 corpus per each language, because normally for English we will have like 20 different corpora. It works with 1 corpus, and that corpus was specifically cleaned for learning purposes. So it shouldn't allow any politically sensitive topics, religiously sensitive topics, any adult words, or if you will still find the word sex in the corpus, but it will be in acceptable contexts for teaching, because we assume that this might be also used by primary school teachers, and they might not like to see certain sentences in the corpus. So this is Scale. Yeah, and that's all about SketchEngine. And one last thing, we keep improving support for existing languages, and we also keep developing support for more languages. We've just been approached by a New Zealand government, and they need Maori in SketchEngine, and we do have a Maori corpus, but we don't have part of speech tagging or lemmatization for Maori, which lemmatization is nearly non-existent in Maori, but part of speech tagging would be useful. So we are developing that at the moment, or looking into it, have not really started. So, but when we develop the tool or improve a tool, we often need people who can understand the language, not necessarily native speakers, to tell us. We'll send them a list of words and we'll ask them, can you please confirm these are all adjectives in Maori or adjectives in Hindi? And we just need the person to say, oh yeah, looks correct, they are probably all adjectives. Or, yeah, there are adjectives, but like 30% of those are actually adverbs, so you may need to fix that. So that's the kind of help we need. It's very random, very occasional, but we need a very long list of people who can provide that help, because of course when we email them, 90% of them say, sorry, don't have time to help, too busy, which is perfectly okay, but that's why we need many people. So if you would like to be on the list, we might email you tomorrow, but very unlikely. We might email you in 2 years, we might never email you. But if you want to be on the list, please visit that, or we've got the URL on our stand. Register, and if you register, you get 6 months of SketchEngine access free of charge to play with SketchEngine. So you can, that's one way of getting free access. And this is the end of it. And now probably questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question round. We have the support from the co-worker from him, and yeah, we have around 15 questions, but around.
Yeah, I will put it together. So hello, I'm Marek, I work with Ondřej. We have 15 questions. The most frequent one is, are there employment opportunities at SketchEngine? What skills are you looking for?
Yes, there are. Very rarely there are employment opportunities. We are not a huge company. There's 15 of us, 14 programmers, 1 sales and marketing person, who can guess who that is, and 1 accountant. So employment opportunities are not very frequent. People stay for many years because it is such a great job. But if you have to be programmer. That's what we need. Your IT person with knowledge or interest or some expertise in language, but primarily IT person. We are not thinking of another sales and marketing person.
And how is SketchEngine useful for people who just want to study a language as a hobby?
I use SketchEngine for writing, because I need to write emails in English most of the time, very rarely Czech, sometimes Spanish, and extremely rarely Russian. And I use it for, this would be like more like a hobby use, because really I just not want to check whether what I want to say is the normal way of saying that. So I use something like the word sketch. And when I want to say big mistake, not really in English, but in another language, but I'll just use the example in English. Mám tam mezeru, no to je strašné. Tak, mistake. Okay. It's Japanese, mistake. Okay, so I can generate something like that, and suddenly if I'm writing something formal in English, and big mistake is just too common, nothing special, so I can suddenly see that maybe I could say costly mistake or fatal mistake or grave mistake, and now suddenly it sounds a lot more impressive. It looks as if my English is much better than it really is. So this is one way of using it. The same thing, for example, in Czech, which is my mother tongue, I often use the Thesaurus because sometimes I want to use a word which I actually know, but I just can't remember it. So I write a word that's similar in meaning, and when I go through the Thesaurus list, usually I find the word I'm looking for somewhere in the list. And then I know how to use it because I speak Czech reasonably fluently. Yeah.
What kind of texts are there in the corpora, and do you have corpora produced by specific groups, such as to discover slang?
I forgot to say that. The large multi-billion word corpora cannot be created manually. It's completely because if you've ever heard of something like British National Corpus or CREA, Corpus de Referencia del Español Actual, both of these corpora are high quality corpora. They were people manually selected which texts should go into a corpus. But both of these corpora only have 100 million words. So if you search for transcendentality, you might find just one example and no collocations. Or maybe 3 examples, and that's not enough to generate collocations. But if you want to have a really large corpus, billions of words, manual approach, but simply nobody has the budget to go through the manual approach. So our multi-billion word corpora are always collected from the web. Yeah, linguists go like, web, yeah, and a bottomless store of nonsense, yeah. So actually we have to be very careful, and we developed a specialized tools and specialized procedure to only collect linguistically valuable content. So we have a way of avoiding adult sites, Viagra selling sites, hair growth sites, extensions of all kinds of parts of body sites, yeah? And all those sites which are so frequent on the internet that if we just randomly downloaded everything, and actually when we generate word sketch for the word to buy in English from an uncleaned corpus, the most typical collocation is buy Viagra, because there's so many of those sites. So actually we've got a way of avoiding that content, and in addition to that, we have to make sure that the most frequent noun in any language is not the noun home or menu, because every web page has the word menu or home. So we have another tool which we apply on the good content, and when we download a web page which has the main text in the middle and some navigation menu, top menu, advertising, legal text, the tool is available to detect this unwanted content and will delete it from the page and will only keep the main body of the article. And that's how we make these corpora from the web linguistically valuable. Again, on our website you can read a blog post which explains this in a little bit more detail, and we also publish papers on what we do, so there are actually even scientific papers on exactly that procedure, but they might be a bit too technical for normal users, so the blog post is better. Oh, and specialized corpora, generally no, because we want to make our corpora as general use as possible. If we started to build specialized corpora, then suddenly in every language people would ask for finance and cats and dentistry and bricklaying and all kinds of things. So actually with this specialized content, we expect the users to use the corpus building tool and build their own specialized corpora from the web, because it's quite possible that if you need a bricklaying Corpus for bricklayers English course, then you might be the only person in the world who needs it. So we rely on you using the tool to build what you need.
And that brings another question: who owns the rights to the corpora and to the text that the user uploads? If there's some data privacy as well.
In SketchEngine, each user has its own account. It's like Google Drive or Dropbox or similar sites. When you upload data, you only upload them into your own account. Nobody has access to the data. It's your own corpus. Even in the like this is where you select your corpora and you've got a special tab which is called My Corpora. These are corpora I uploaded. But maybe, see, here you can see a corpus which has this icon, and that means that I granted access to the corpus to certain other users. So you can actually, if you want to, share the corpus with other SketchEngine users, but you can never share it with everybody. You can't say everybody has access. You will just, if you have a friend and you know the friend's email address, you can can grant access to the corpus for your friend. You can never make it completely public. But it's not shared automatically. By default, it's just yours. Nobody sees it.
Is it possible to interface with other translation software products, SDL Studio and so on?
Yes, but unfortunately, I mean, this is probably a question from a translator. SDL Studio is a special translation software which helps translators translate, make it more efficient, be more efficient in translation. Yes, it would be great to integrate some of this functionality into translation software to bring up collocations and verbs which should be used and example sentences and God knows what. Unfortunately, CAT tool developers are not generally interested in that so far, so we don't see much interest, and we will certainly not develop a new CAT tool just because of that. So we are very open to a collaboration. We approached several CAT tool developers, but so far we have not seen much interest in integrating this. So when you are translating, you have to use your CAT tool, you have to be logged in SketchEngine to switch between the two, which I don't think is practical. We would like a seamless integration, but we can't force them to integrate it, so no.
And where can I find which universities are supported in the free access, and does the European Commission have access for free?
European Commission is not an academic institution, to my knowledge, so does not have access. If you want a list of universities, Google something like free SketchEngine for universities, and the first link should be the page on our website which lists all the universities. The link is too long to just tell you. I don't even remember it.
And there is, are you interested in tools for Esperanto? So I'm the Esperantist working in the company, so I can discuss that later with you. But then also can you use Corpora to train SketchEngine so it will develop artificial intelligence?
If we can use SketchEngine to... Would you like to answer that? Well, it depends on what artificial intelligence you have in mind, but maybe I could say, yes, we use our corpora to generate all kinds of language databases for use in other software, or to generate language models to be used by software companies. So yes, it is used for that purpose, but I mean, we don't work for that ourselves. We just generate data that other companies use to develop some artificial intelligence or tools which have used neural networks and those things.
Probably the last question, which languages are covered in the subscription fee? Are all languages?
The free trial subscription does not gives you access to all tools, but does not give you access to all corpora in SketchEngine, but generally there should be at least one corpus per language available. if you register as the consultant and you get the 6-month trial, then you will have access to the full functionality for the duration of that 6-month period. So all corpora, when I say all corpora, it's minus the corpora which are intellectual properties of our customers. So like, we will see Oxford University Press Corpus, but you have to request permission from them to access that, for example, and that's only for scientific purposes. But yes, all corpora, there are just a handful of those where you don't have access. And that's all my colleague says. Maybe any more questions on top of that? Yeah? Oh, it will still be there. It's not that we completely exclude every site, but if it's used, we just exclude sites which are those Viagra selling sites, which contain often low quality language, machine translated. But if there are just articles on the web, I mean, if BBC writes about Viagra, we will not exclude because it contains that word. It's a respectable source. Good language quality, it will be included. So I'm sure you find lots of examples of Viagra. Do you want to see how many there are in English? I wonder what your research is about. Also 62,000 examples of Viagra in the corpus. Yeah, again, you can see the result of automatic processing. Sometimes we list a number as a collocation, which obviously is not. But again, it doesn't make it less useful. It's still useful information. And there are actually many more categories. Actually, this is the first presentation that finishes with a word sketch of Viagra. Yeah? No, yeah, I know, I've learned, yeah. Okay. Yeah, if you have some specific question, please come to see us at the stand. We will probably be leaving today, but we'll be back tomorrow morning. So for the whole of tomorrow, we'll be at the stand, so you can come. By the way, it also works on your mobile phone. It's a website, but the website adjusts itself to the small screen, so you can do that on a mobile phone. So thank you for listening, thank you for being with us, and hopefully see you at the stand tomorrow.